All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, ready for some social studies. In our reading activity today, we're going to be doing some reading on both the Jamestown and the Plymouth colonies. We're going to be using a graphic organizer to take some notes on different categories, and we're going to end up ultimately plugging those into a compare and contrast graphic organizer as well. So we kind of got a couple of different steps here. As usual, Mr. C will read aloud. I'm going to show you the first couple on each category, okay, because you see we have Jamestown, we have Plymouth, all right. The corresponding readings are posted in your Google Classroom. And then we have our compare and contrast, where we're going to put some similarities and some differences of these two colonies, okay, which were very, very much of a key when it comes to the colonization of North America, the United States, in the original 13. So, as we go, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing 4 different categories. So we're going to go with the purpose of, so we're going to take 2 to 3 notes on the purpose of the colony. So what's the goal? Why was it founded? Okay. We're going to do location. Where did it start? Where did it originate? Okay. Where did it end up when it came to the New World? What are some of the problems or issues that the colonies faced? And lastly, but not least, would be the progress. So how did they fare as time went on? So progress can also be negative. They could have issues. But overall, progress in a perfect world is positive progress. Colonies grow if all is well. So we'll be looking at for these 2 areas. We'll do some work together in groups, and then you'll do some independent as well too. Let's get started we will start with the Jamestown reading. And for those of you who are listening to this on my screencast, just a reminder, here are our directions. You'll be pulling information from the text that we will read aloud, pull 2 to 3 key details or each of the categories and type them in the box. Okay? No copy and pasting. I'd like you to write out what you hear. Okay? All right. Jamestown. In 1607, approximately 100 English colonists sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to an unknown territory. So before I go any further, do we have anything in here that you believe falls into one of our categories? Yes, you in the back. English colonists. Nice. That is perfect. So we know that the Jamestown colony originated in England. So let's go plug that into location. Originated in England. So there's our first note. The colonists were members of a joint stock venture known as the Carolina Stock Company. King James I of England granted a charter to the Virginia Company, allowing them to form the first permanent English settlement in North America. In order to earn money for stockholders, the colonists of the Virginia Company were tasked with the goal of finding riches in the form of gold and silver minerals. Additionally, the king wanted to expand English lands and find a river route to the Pacific Ocean in order to increase trade with Asia. I think we've got a couple of more in here. Can anybody tell me something that belongs in one of these categories? Yes, absolutely. Okay, so colonists of the Virginia Company were tasked with finding riches. So let's go to our graphic organizer. Purpose, tasked with finding gold and silver. What else? Do we have anything else for one of our categories? Let's go back. Yes, absolutely. There was a second goal, a second purpose to use that wonderful vocab word, and that was to expand English lands. So, land expansion, British land expansion, and route to Asia. We can see all of those there. So we can see varying reasons for this expansion, right? All right. So on this next 2, I'm going to read them out loud, and I'd like you, in your groups, you're already in them like usual, to pull out the text pieces and those notes for the different areas as you hear them. I will pause for a minute or two between both paragraphs. So here we go. The colonists eventually settled on a narrow peninsula on the banks of the James River near the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia. Real quick before I go on, anybody know what a peninsula is? Yes, just like Florida, right? Good job. The location of Jamestown was picked because of deep water allowed for ships to anchor, and it was far enough inland to provide protection from invaders. The colonists constructed a wood fort for protection, a storehouse for ammunition, a church, and several homes. So, let's take a couple of minutes. Shouldn't take too long. In your groups, let's pull out for that one right there, and I will be moving around to your groups and just kind of keeping an eye, making sure we're getting what we're supposed to. There are 2 to 3 pieces in that paragraph to help us fill our graphic organizer. Go ahead, take that time now. And 5 minutes are over. Coming back. Third paragraph. Unfortunately, the colonists soon ran into different problems. The location of the settlement was not ideal for permanent living. First, the colonists lacked fresh water, which led to dehydration, disease, and death. Now, before I go any further, why does anybody, I'm going to pull up and show you on the map real quick, okay? We look at that map and we see where Jamestown was. What's the problem? Why couldn't they have fresh water right where they landed? Ah, yes, because they're right next to the ocean. Okay? Secondly, the land was marshy and swamp-like, which made crops difficult. The area was also experiencing a severe drought. Without an adequate food supply, many of the colonists died from starvation. Third, the problems were compounded by attacks from local Native Americans. More than half of the initial colonists did not survive the first winter in Jamestown. Okay, so we're into our third paragraph in your groups, and if you had to finish up the second one, that's fine. I want you to go through that third paragraph and pull out the pieces that we need for our graphic organizer. Now, if you notice, we saw the word problems multiple times, okay? So chances are we're going to have our bullets full, okay, right after we process this in your groups. So, go ahead, 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is done. Last paragraph. Okay, now when we finish this one, I want you to process this one individually. Okay, after Mr. C finishes reading, I'll be around if you need help, if you have any questions. I'll just be checking to make sure that you're getting the good stuff. As time progressed, skilled laborers, farmers, and supplies arrived from England to help the struggling colonists. The settlers learned new techniques for farming and were able to establish a decent food supply and a successful tobacco cash crop. Soon, additional forts and settlements were built up and down the James River, making Jamestown the first permanent English colony. Now, in your graphic organizer, I want you to go through that fourth paragraph. So, we have 2 to 3 bullets for each thing going up and down. Okay? Let's go ahead and process that last paragraph. Let's go 5 minutes. And then we're going to restart this one more time, and we're going to do Plymouth shortly thereafter. Okay? Go ahead now. Thank you. I'll be around if you have any questions. All right, boys and girls, let's go ahead and sew that up. We're going to spend a few minutes. Let's go over some of the bullets that you guys found. All right, so we can go through the purpose, the locations, the problems, and progress. Okay, and we'll pull out all the good stuff that you guys did, both in groups and individually, before we move on to Plymouth. All right, everybody's graphic organizer on the left-hand side should be completely full now, okay? Let's start with Plymouth. We're going to use the same formula, I'll start the first paragraph, and I will pull the stuff out from the first paragraph. You guys in your groups will do the next two, and then we'll do one individually on the third one. Okay? Excuse me, on the fourth paragraph. So let's go to Plymouth. A group of religious separatists left England aboard the Mayflower in the year 1620. They were in search of a place where they would be able to worship freely. The Pilgrims, as they came to be known, wanted to separate from the Church of England and start their own colony in North America where they could lead a simpler life guided by the Bible. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. So maybe similarly to the Jamestown, we all see, again, it originated in England. Okay? Or in England. Now, if we go back, we can see we wanted a place to worship freely, separate from the Church of England. So we go back and we could say wanted religious freedom from the Church of England. Okay. We also saw originated in England. Okay? Let's go back to the reading. Now, just like we did in the first passage, you're going to do the next two in your groups. Now, what I will do this time to make things a little bit easier for everybody is I'm going to read both passages. Okay? I'm going to read both paragraphs. All right? I will be around to help if you need me to restate anything, but let's go through the next two paragraphs so that we can go through just a little bit smoother. After a long and difficult trip across the Atlantic Ocean, the Pilgrims arrived in southeastern Massachusetts. The colonists decided to land in a location they called Plymouth. It had a calm harbor, a river for fresh water, and flat lands to grow crops. Now think maybe some of the problems that they had in Jamestown. See if anything rings a bell in there. Before exiting the ship, the Pilgrims drafted and signed the Mayflower Compact, the first governing document of the Plymouth colony. The Mayflower Compact specified basic laws and rules for the colony. The Pilgrims landed in Plymouth and at the beginning of winter, and they were not prepared for the harsh climate. Nearly half of the colonists died due to cold, disease, and starvation. After an extremely rough first year, the Mayflower sailed back to England, and the colonists were left to fend for themselves in North America. Luckily, their relationships with the Native Americans would help the struggling Pilgrims survive. All right, so we got a lot in those two paragraphs. All right, so in your groups, let's take 10 minutes, and I want you to go through these two paragraphs and pull out the good stuff. Okay, remember, just like we did with Jamestown, we've got our purpose, more on location, some on the problems. Okay. So look in here at this point and see what we can get. Again, 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes. Last paragraph is individual. As again, Ms. Carter will be around to support you, making sure you're getting that good stuff. Before the Pilgrims landed in Plymouth, many of the Native Americans in the area had been killed by an epidemic. Most of the Native Americans that were left were friendly with the Pilgrims. Peace treaties were signed with the Native Americans, and the colonists were taught valuable survival skills. The Native Americans taught the colonists how to successfully grow crops, fish, hunt, and gather fruit. The colonists and Native Americans even joined together to celebrate a bountiful harvest feast, which now serves as the basis for the modern Thanksgiving holiday. With the help of Native Americans, the Plymouth colony was able to grow from just 45 people to over 7,000 colonists. That's some substantial growth. Okay? All right, that is our biggest paragraph. So I want you to go through and start plugging in. Now, chances are you're going to be looking down here in the problems in progress area on this paragraph. Okay? Go through, pluck out the good stuff. This is individually on this one, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get this settled up. Let's say 5 minutes to go through this one, okay? And then we will go through and I will show you the compare and contrast chart. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's been 5 minutes. Let's look at the compare and contrast card. This will be the final part of our activity today. This part I would like to be done in groups, okay, for the entire activity. We want to be able to pull as many different pieces together as possible, so I want you guys to build these in your groups of 4, okay? So with this, we're simply going to take a look at our graphic organizer and find the things that are similar and find some of the things that are different. So like, for example, I'm going to give you one of both. Both colonies, okay, were originated in Britain. So we can go to the similarities. I suggest bulleting. We'll make this a little bit smaller. Both colonies started in England. Easy peasy, right? Let's see if we can find a difference. Let's stick with the purpose and see if we can find a difference in the purpose. Now, Jamestown was founded to make money and to boost the English Empire, right? The British Empire, excuse me. All right? Find the gold and silver. Now, was that the same as in Plymouth? No, you're right. You're 100% right. Plymouth was about religious freedom, okay? So let's go to the compare and contrast, and we're going to hit let's go with a difference. Let's make this guy a little bit smaller and say, was created for religious freedom and not for profit. Okay? So that's one difference that Plymouth Colony had than Jamestown. All right? There's other differences in here. Okay? There's going to be other similarities. We should be able to put at least one difference, one similarity in every box. Now, if you know more and want to take it a little bit farther, that's fine. Okay? If you can come up with more than one bullet, all right? But this is for our group work, ladies and gentlemen. I want you guys collaborating on this. There are groups of 4. Should be more than enough. Pull your graphic organizers together and put together. Everybody should be able to turn in your own version of this guy right here. All right? As usual, Mr. C will be moving around the room, answering questions, clearing up confusion, and watching you guys be awesome. So, thank you so much, and let's get started.